Well. Look who has returned. Hi.
Hi.
So today we're gonna be we're gonna kind of be going over Voltron, Legendary Defenders season 6. It's a Netflix original. If you haven't seen the first podcast of this, where we went through seasons 1 through 5, you should watch that because then this will make a lot more sense.
Or
And
just watch the
also,
show.
yeah, or that. That's probably the better option. All right. So I guess we should just kick things off with episode 1. Literally the first thing that okay, wait. Episode 1, they're like, uh, Lotor or Allura is helping Lotor build the
Lator's helping
machine. Like,
Lotor.
stop barking. Lotor, or yeah, Allura is like helping Lotor build the future Megazord. uh, and I like
Yeah.
the first time I watched this, because like there was obviously the break. I'd seen like seasons 1 through 5, and then when I started watching 6, I was like, Lotor is obviously evil. Like, that's the first thing written in my notes. I don't know what tipped me off the first time watching it, but I was just like, Lotor is obviously evil. He's gonna like betray them somehow or whatever. And on the rewatch, I think the reason that I felt like that was because like his facial expressions were like a little more sinister, but the big thing was that he was complimenting Allura too much. He was like this. He was like, all of this is possible because you helped me, and I was just like, you wouldn't say that unless you were planning to like betray her. Like, unless like it's for dramatic tension. It's to build up because 3 episodes later, it's in episode 4 that it's revealed, and I felt like they were trying to like build up the tension really fast or whatever. But because in like at the end of episode or season 5, I was like, wow, he's like a real part of the team, and that's partly because he like went into the whatever into um
The Altean sacred secret legend place and White Lion
yeah,
stuff.
that. So I figured like he was worthy or something, but I guess the only reason he was able to make it in there was because he's part Altean, which makes sense, I'd say.
Well,
Uh,
Karan wasn't in there either, so
that's true. What was up with that? Maybe
they
I
actually
have no
explained it.
idea.
Not every Altean is worthy. Only a few.
Were they so then
Only
how
some.
is Lotor worthy? If he had evil intentions, or well, I guess his intentions weren't really evil, but
I think
like
it's a DNA thing. I think it's a
I
DNA thing, like he did
guess
on the Altean colony. They were searching like how some people had good quintessence, some people
yeah,
had
that oh yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah,
quintessence.
it has something to do
Probably
with
that.
that. Um,
The thing about Lotor, oh sorry,
yeah,
the thing about Lotor is, I was fooled. Like at first I'm like he's evil, but then season 5 it's like no, he's good. I love him.
yeah,
Then
exactly. And then like as soon as
evil,
season
then I'm
6
like,
started, like I was just like, I smell evil.
I
I smell evil in the
was
air.
fooled too. Like, and when they were about, like the time when they were about to kiss before like, Lance
Yeah. I
I'm
don't like.
like, oh my goodness gracious, that is fast, but I still love him. And then he was evil, and then they kissed, and I'm like,
Yeah, the romantic plots in this show are either like non-existent and like kind of stupid, or just like they come on way too fast and then they disappear even
I
faster.
watched
Which
a lot.
like it's not even that big a deal because like the romantic subplots are not very big in this show. Um,
Um,
but
yeah,
I still thought it was pretty funny. The other thing that I noticed pretty quick off the bat, and something that I had in the back of my mind, the first thing I noticed on the rewatch, is that this show consists like I kind of looked back at the other seasons and I noticed this show is so like still, like the animation, like every frame and stuff looks really good, but like if you pause it, it's kind of like that screenshot. There's a lot of like panning and stuff of just characters like talking, and then when they're actually fighting like in space with all of the lions and stuff, that is really cool because they have a lot of effects going on and all that. But although but that's CG, that's computer generated, so it just doesn't have like the fluidity as like regular animation does. And for CG animation, it looks amazing. It's probably the best and most fluid CG animation I've seen so far. in any show. But just the fact that it is CG animation, it just like I have never seen, and I do not expect to ever see CG animation look as good as regular animation. That's the best way I can word that.
Yeah, so the whole thing with the fight scenes, like with Voltron, it's so like this the CG, like the 3D models, like it's all beautiful, but then like you look
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
fighting with like Keith versus Kuron, which is just Clone Shiro, and it's just this beautifully animated
Yeah,
like
yeah, and that was
the
the other
way.
thing. That was the other thing is that when they do animate like 2D animation, it looks great. So like I wish they would have more like human on human or I guess human on humanoid alien fights because I those are the most memorable for me. Those are by far way better, especially because, we just see so much of and like we just see so much of like Voltron fighting other random space bots or whatever. And one thing that I kind of noticed on my like I noticed it a lot on my first watch through, and I don't know why I didn't mention this in the first podcast, but they do not do like a fast Voltron forming once. Every single time we have to form Voltron, it either happens off screen or it's the entire 45-second cutscene of like and it looks great. Like I cannot even fathom how cool watching all the mechanical parts, like from when the camera is inside of Voltron, you're like looking
Yeah, that's
and all the gears
amazing.
are like coming into place and clamping on each other. That looks awesome. But
So when
like
I first saw the
every
show for the
single
first
time, it's weird.
I watched this thing with the creators of the show, like it was a live stream they were doing, and that was a question asked, like, why did the aliens just wait
Uh-huh.
around 45 seconds for this to happen? They're like, no, it's instantaneous. It's just the whole forming
It's
thing
instantaneous.
the
It's
viewers or something
instantaneous.
like that. And I'm like,
But
good to
we
know.
see 45 seconds as instantaneous.
Happening in slow motion or something,
That's
I don't know. But the first time I saw
okay.
Voltron 4, the show, I knew I was
But
gonna
like
love
how
it.
are we
And
supposed to know how are we supposed to know that it's instantaneous if the only times we ever see it happen is the 45-second cutscene?
I don't know.
I thought that
Like
was
you get this
very, very
extra
strange.
by watching stuff like that.
Yeah,
Another
yeah.
thing, like
Okay.
when I watched, like after season 6 came out, like I watched a bunch of stuff with the creators and the voice actors, and they're saying like a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of stuff about the show, which that was
Oh
one
yeah,
of them.
by the
And then the
total
whole
total side
Lotor
note,
thing
the
and the
voice
romance
actors are
thing
amazing in this show.
are. And
Okay,
so there was this
continue.
one thing, back to
Sorry.
the romance thing, they even talked about that. Josh Keaton, the voice of Shiro, he's like, yeah, that the whole point of the Allura and Lotor romance going fast was on purpose, and that real
It
romance, like a
was.
true romance, if it was going to happen, it'd be very, very slow burn, as he put it. And
Yeah,
I'm
and I
like,
guess that was the other thing. That was the other thing that kind of made me like uneasy. Like maybe be like, yeah, Lotor's he's up to something. I smell mischievousness.
this relationship is forming way too quickly. Like,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
long have you
Because like
been
in like
like,
the biggest, the most for me the most believable relationship in the entire show would be Allura and Lance because Lance shows attraction to Allura episode 1, and they have been together. Well, or they have been working together and forming a very close friendship bond for 5 seasons. It makes the most sense logically, and
but there's also the
they actually and they use this like this is they really intelligently and maturely say like Allura and Lance, like Lance is attracted to Allura just does not really reciprocate those feelings, and Lance is like, okay, got it. It's like it's very mature of him, and that's something that I was hoping to see from episode 1 is Lance, be a man and mature instead of just like instead of trying
that's
to be
Lance's,
comic relief because we have
his
other
character
characters
arc.
and the whole dynamics with for that.
That's his character. Lance's character arc is taking its go. Like he's at this point, he's broken. He's being broken with kind
Oh
of
yeah,
all that
this is my favorite
abuse from
season
Huron, the
6.
clone, and stuff. Like everyone kind of ignoring him. Him dying. He actually
Yeah,
died on screen, and he's broken. And he had no one to talk to. Pigeon Hunk ignored him. Allura was with Lotor. He wasn't going to talk to Shiro because he's kind of busy. Like, at the time, he was the clone who verbally kind of abused him. So he's kind of broken at this point, and he's maturing, and that's his character arc, right?
Season 6 Lance is by far my favorite so far.
Yeah,
he's
I
great.
love him.
All right, I guess we're 10 minutes in. I guess it's time we actually talk about what happens in the episode.
And we're just like everywhere.
Yeah, okay, we kind of had to get that stuff out over with the overview of it. So, like, episode 1, we start getting into the actual, like, Galra culture. Like, Hunk starts learning about, he learns what Verpid means. He learns all these, like, terms and what Galra culture, basically. But something that I, on the rewatch, found hilarious was, Hunk, understandably, is, like, really excited to learn about Galra culture and stuff. And he's like, it makes sense. If we're going to be, like, working with them, then we should know about their culture. And this Galra lady, who they have never met before, is like, I can teach you, but you might die. And then Alora's just like, it doesn't matter, Hunk. Go get him. You're a paladin of Voltron. I don't care that you might die. I don't care that we're leaving you alone with this Galra that we've never met before.
Sure, go ahead, have a fight
go
with
learn
them,
all
and
that
let's
stuff.
leave.
And it's like, and the thing is, it's kind of completely unnecessary because, well, from their perspective, they have Lotor. He knows all about this stuff. He can just tell them. And it's like, you could have, like, there's part of the honor system or whatever. Like, maybe he doesn't want to tell them all the culture secrets or whatever. But, like, then they could just kind of have him be the translator or whatever. Like, he can just speak on their behalf to the Galra. He has all that knowledge.
That
and it's like,
doesn't like the Galra, even though he's part Galra. He hates his father. And before he died, he was kind of saying how he wanted to kill all the Galra, and because he wanted to preserve that Altean stuff. So he actually hates
wanted
Galra.
To kill every Galra?
They're his enemies, so he wants to preserve the Altean.
I thought he wanted to control. He wanted to, like, have more control.
He wanted to control the Altean, not the Galra. He kind of wanted to kill them, and that's why his generals left.
I did not.
Again.
I didn't catch that. Huh. Okay. Another thing I wanted to mention is that the comedy is still really, like, this, I don't know what it is about, like, this show has a really unique style of comedy that I really like. I just wrote that down in my notes halfway through the episode. I forget what made me laugh, but I was like, yeah, this show, it's still got the comedy. Yeah, then I wrote down they're still doing the 45-second transformation, which we touched on earlier. And then the most important thing, we had, like, the whole planet's gonna be destroyed by, like, solar radiation, which is, it's a fine...
They gotta put the shield back together.
Yeah, it's a fine... it's, like, it doesn't have that many plot holes, but, like, I would think, maybe they'd try to move the planet somehow, or, like, figure... Like, it seems like having a shield...
Try moving a planet!
I mean... ask help from Voltron. I think that Voltron could do that.
Shield is, like, in the gravitational pull of the planet, so that's kind of impossible. That's why the shield's there in the first place.
I don't know. It just seems like it seems like the kind of thing that you would get, like, a lot of, like, social revolting from. Like, a lot of people would be like, I don't care that there's a shield. It can obviously fail. We should get off of this planet that might be destroyed by solar radiation at any moment.
So when did the solar radiation get there if there's life there in the first place?
Yeah, that's the other thing, is, like, it's like, if there was solar radiation that apparently hits this planet, like, on every 15 doba, I don't know how long it was. I thought at first I thought it was, like, every year, but then it hits, like, the planet twice or something.
I think it's, like,
so maybe
every
it's like
30 dobashes or something.
That's 30, like that's really often. So, like, there's no way that this planet, like, had functioning life on it.
I mean,
like
the radiation belt.
Yeah, so, like, that means that like these people, or the Galra living on the planet, were there before that radiation laser thingy started going by their planet. And you'd think that they'd be like, oh shoot, this thing might destroy the planet, let's get out of here. Because there are so many other planets that they could go to that are controlled by Galra. Why create a shield? Why not just leave?
I think because they wanted to kill off a character, and hence they did. I keep talking about this a lot because they don't mention it again, and this is important. Yeah.
But I do still like the whole, like, fires of purification thing. Like, that made sense. There's a whole, like, faction of people. Like, it makes sense that a lot of Galra would not be happy having Lotor be the leader. They want
Working with Voltron.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't want that.
What was Cat Galra guy's name again?
Sendak?
Sendak. Yeah,
You
it
realize
makes sense
all
that a lot of
Galra,
people.
like,
Yeah, like Sendak
all
was
Galra
like,
are cats.
really, but Voltron looks like, or Zarkon looked like a lizard.
I don't know. Like, I see a lot of people on the internet portraying like Galra, if he was full Galra as a cat, so, and they're all like, Galra are just cat people, and I'm like, okay, you furries.
I did not. Freaking fur.
No, they have fangs.
I don't know. Okay. He looks especially cat-ish. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. So anyway, it makes sense that a lot of people would like want him to be the new leader. Yeah. So I like that aspect that they're kind of going into like the social, how people would react after they've lost their monarch. And then capping off the episode, we get kind of like the flash of like Shiro. Shiro's like in pain while they're fighting in Voltron, and it's kind of like hinted that he's under the Galra, or he's under Hagar's influence or whatever. And the way that they've progressed Shiro's arc was very well done. You're constant. They remind you of it. They tell you that the show makes sure that you know about it, but it doesn't bring it up like every episode, just like teasing you. It's a really good pace, and although I felt like it was a little drawn out, that's not necessarily a negative. It's just like, tell us what's going on. And we did finally figure out what was going on. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, the whole thing with Clone Shiro was beautifully done, even though everyone kind of knew. But, like, that confirmation that, like, he was a clone.
It's like, yes, I knew it.
Hold it. Like, the first time I saw him, I'm like, that's not right. And just kind of seeing, well, Clone Shiro, the fandom's been calling Kuron because that's what the project was called, Operation Kuron.
Yep.
The Clone Shiro, you'll often call him Kuron. Like, he thinks he's Shiro, and then, like, you see how he's, like, kind of becoming less of Shiro and more of kind of this, like, person who...
Yeah, that was a little confusing for me. It was, like, so, like, does he have all, like, Shiro's memories up to, like, being...
And he has all Shiro's memories, so he thinks he's Shiro, but because he's under Hagar's influence, sometimes he starts becoming person, and that's why he was kind of yelling at Lance in the previous season, and like that's why he was kind of like, I don't feel like myself, because he's not himself, and that's where the Black Lion's kind of like, you're my paladin, because everyone thought it was their paladin, like that was Shiro, but it wasn't, and it was beautifully done.
Yeah. All right, moving on to episode 2. This is where, wait a minute. I wrote my first note is just don't explain later. Oh, I remember what this was. Okay, so we start episode 2 right after Keith says "you're my" at the end of the one episode, and he finishes the freaking sentence in this episode, and he's like, and he says "you're my mom," and then she's like, "Yeah, I'll explain later," and Keith just goes, "What? You're gonna drop a bombshell on me and then say you'll explain later?" And I was like, "Yeah, explain now, please." Like,
because they need to go on an important mission
for the audience, and I get so annoyed when shows do that.
Though, in flashback sequences on that one planet, and Baby Keith.
Yeah, Baby Keith's cute.
Only note I wrote for this episode was Baby Keith.
Baby Keith. I wrote good space doggo.
Everyone, like, it doesn't have a name. That's actually a theory going around what the name is, because the creators won't give it out because it's spoilers. And I'm like, is it Keith's dad's name?
What is?
The Space Wolf's name.
Oh,
it's
dogs?
spoilers.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's spoilers.
I never
Keith
really
named it
wondered what
after
the name-
something that couldn't be said. So I'm like, does Keith have a love interest? Is this a thing?
I never really wondered why, like, or what its name was, because it's only been like on screen for like 30 seconds total. But even then, I love it.
People ask the creators about it, and they're like, "That's spoiler material," and it's like,
right.
if you can't, what? Like, I'm confused now. Like, now I'm intrigued. What's the wolf's name?
I have no idea. Okay.
That's an actual thing that people.
I also wrote down I wrote down Keith's missions are way better because Keith. I think this is partly because Keith isn't controlling one of the lions and he's not always in a ship, so you see a lot more of the like regular drawn like him person on person fighting, which looks way cooler than the CG animation, and also just because like he's a much, in my opinion, he's a much more interesting character. He has a lot more of like what's the word? Like emotional hangups or something. Like he has a lot more lore that the show could go into, which makes the Blade of Marmora missions for me a lot more interesting than the Voltron missions.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Keith's gone through more character development than all the other characters, personally.
Yeah, and especially like he's more mature. Like he's smarter. He's like he's the like
Sure
when I'm thinking. Like when I'm thinking like why don't you just do this? Keith then right after I think that he does the thing that I'm thinking, like showing that he's smart. Like when they were being attacked by those space time bug thingies like on the ship, I'm like, why don't you just like abandon ship? And right as I thought that, Keith goes, we need to ditch. And I was like, yes, you're being smart. And like it's more fun to watch a smart character than it is to watch a stupid character.
After Keith spent the 2 years on the weird space whale thing, he's more sure and confident of himself, finally getting that closure and spending the 2 years with Crolia, with his mom, just kind of like getting to know her.
That was
the reason she left.
That was one thing. That was one thing that I was like kind of. I was like, why did it have to be 2 years, and why did it go by in like 15 seconds? Because like they've established that like time is different. Because like they went by 2 years in the time that it took everybody else to be like a few months, or I don't know how long it was, maybe a couple days, who knows. But the point is it moved a lot time moved faster for them.
The creators actually said it wasn't for any shipping reasons, because a lot of people are like, Sheath's canon now, and it's like, no, like the creators said that it was just so Keith can spend time with Crolia.
And that made a lot of sense. I was like, he'd have a lot of questions to ask, and I figured the 2 years, it's like this is an easy way for them to be like, he asks questions, she explains stuff. But then it's a little confusing because we don't see any of that. We just see like some, like 15 seconds of just like little cuts of the dog growing older and stuff. Like it would have been, it would have been a lot clearer and a lot more entertaining if he would say, like, all right, we're going to be here a while. Why don't you explain something about my dad? And she could kind of give some vague thing and we'd see a flashback or whatever. Or maybe even better, he'd say, explain those flashbacks those visions that I just saw. And then she would explain those visions that they just saw. That would be so cool.
About the visions with like Keith's mom and dad, my first watch, in the second watch, I noticed that there are a bunch of parallels when Crolia and Keith's dad find the blue lion to when Keith and Lance find the blue lion, like, and the rest find the lion. And, like, I kind of noticed that, and I put it in the back of my mind, and I watched, again, I keep watching interviews because I get curious, and, like, Jeremy Shada, the voice for Lance, like, people will ask, why is that's a weird coincidence. What do you think of it? And he's like, oh, those aren't coincidences. Those are on purpose.
Mm-hmm. I also, I don't know why I wrote this. I wrote, nice hint at Shiru's clone with the visions, and then, because he gets like the future vision, and then right after that I wrote, heck. Just the word. I don't know why. Like, this is what I was talking about before we started the recording. I was telling you, like, my notes start off like kind of detailed and like more obvious, but then as we go on, it's just like one to three words of just like that just like makes no sense, and it's just like my base reactions or like what I said at that moment, like with the whole like Allura thing. I just wrote WTF Allura, and that's like literally like what I said out loud when I rewatched that. I was like, what is going, like, why would you say it? I don't know.
I had the opposite reaction. Like, I remember writing down at first the notes just quick one-liners like, why is Lance dead? And stuff like that. But then, like, later on, I have this, like, whole in-depth art, like, bullet point, 3-paragraph bullet point on why, Lotor is an asshole. I'm sorry.
Nice! Okay. I guess moving on to episode 3. I mean, do you have anything else to say about episode 2? I have that's all my notes.
Um, not on the top of my head. Besides, well, the only like bullet point I had this episode was baby Keith with mullet.
Yeah. Okay. Episode 3. I wrote for episode 3. I wrote the word filler 21 times.
Oh, this was this is the Eminem episode.
And it's it's unfortunate. Honestly, I think this episode I was really happy with and also really disappointed with, because this episode had the best animation.
Yeah,
Well,
but it was
maybe
filler.
second best animation with the Shiro clone Keith versus Keith fight. That animation was awesome also, but this animation this was, almost entirely 2D animation. They had a bunch of new monsters. They had the characters running all over the place, jumping up and down, and all that stuff. It looked really cool, and it was all, again, 2D animation, which I prefer. But it meant absolutely nothing. Like, like Allura at one point, she like walks in on the game, or Allura and Lance, sorry, walk in on the game, and they're just like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And they're just like, "Oh, we're playing what was it called? Like Magia. What was it called? Like Magia and Magic or something? I don't know. But they're just like, "Oh, cool! I want to play."
Mana. It's magic and mana.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So like they just like walk in and they're like, "Oh, cool! I want to play." And it's like, at the very least, they could have like had them walk in and be and like did something like, "Oh, that the new Lotor's ship is looking really good," but like they don't even act like this episode. The creators know that like this episode means absolutely nothing to the rest of the show, and they don't even try to hide it, which is hilarious and unfortunate at the same time, because I really like this episode, but it could have been removed from the show entirely, and it would have made no difference.
Pigeon Hunk's Eminem characters walk into the tavern. You see all the creators and like the writers and like all that. They're their own alien characters or whatever.
Yeah,
that's a fun fact. Also, but this episode was actually really beautiful and it was funny.
Yeah,
and I loved it.
Yeah.
But
it's like,
I'm disappointed that was filler. But it is really fun, and I couldn't stop laughing every time Shiro died. And it was like,
like, I laughed. That's like the hardest I had laughed in this entire show, is when he died and he's like, "Okay, I want to be a paladin again." Oh my god, that was really, really well done. But yeah, it's just like kind of too bad that they didn't kind of try to attach it to the rest of the episodes, especially since they only had 7 episodes. They only come out like every 5 or 6 months or whatever. So that's like 14% of this whole season was just filler, and it's an amazing filler episode, but it's just like it's an entirely different show for one episode, and then it goes back to the old
4
show.
and 6 months. Like they come out like every 2 months. The next season's coming out August.
Really? I thought it was like every 5 months.
Season 7, like look on Netflix right now. Season 7's coming out like August 10th.
All right, whatever. I guess time passes slowly for me. All right, episode 4. My first note is, "Oh shoot, Shiro, that's deep," and that's because he said, the infinite quintessence doesn't create evil intentions; it reveals them. And I was like, whoa, that's so deep. That's okay.
It kind of just corrupts the already corrupted mind in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, I was like, that's an awesome one-liner. Let's see. And then I wrote, "Lotor is still obviously evil," because this is kind of where on the rewatch I was like, okay, he's complimenting Allura way too much. Like, this is where he's like, "All of this is only possible because of you." By the way, this is the episode where we find out that Lotor is evil, and they're like inside the quintessence field or whatever. And he's like, "This will change the course of history thanks to you," or like, "because we work together," or whatever. And I was like, there's like no people who are like, that's it was way too obvious, but it was fine, whatever. And then
we find out like freaking Lotor's evil, and then Allura and Lotor, they share a kiss, and I'm like, why didn't you do that before we knew he was evil?
Yeah.
Like, we just know he's an asshole.
Exactly. Yeah, he's an asshole. It's
Does
like why
not
did
know
he
whether
kill?
to play or
And
not.
it's like obviously Allura doesn't know, but we know, so we're just like stop. Why? It's
And if the
infuriating for the
first time
viewer
when
to
you were
watch.
going to do it, I would have been fine with it.
Hmm.
But like now, it's like, why did that was terribly timed.
I was just like, what the hell? Like, why? What the hell? Why would the creators make us so mad at that? All right. And then the other part that made me super mad, like I almost like yelled at the screen. Like I was so mad when they did this. It was Keith comes back, and like this is even worse because Keith has been set up to be a very mature and intelligent character. They get back and he's like, all right guys, where's Lotor? And they're like, he's in the quintessence field. And he's like, oh crap, we got to get him out because he's evil. And they're like, what? Explain, he's been nice. And he goes, I'll explain when Lotor gets back. Why? There is no feasible reason for you to wait. It literally like goes against your plans to why?
Didn't
Oh my
notice
god.
that. I was only more paying attention to the fact, like, why would Lance say that Keith is bigger, cooler, and more grizzled?
Yeah, why would he compliment
That's not
Keith?
a thing you say. That's not
That
a thing.
was so out of character.
Or
Oh
is it?
man.
Dun, dun, dun.
But yeah, like they don't like he explains like they get there and he has the dog, another Altean, and his mom, and he's saying that Lotor is evil, and he explains none of it until Lotor gets back, which is like literally the worst possible time that he could explain that. And then Keith explains like half of it, and he lets whatever her name is explain the rest. Well, I guess it was her story. That made a little more sense. But I was
Mel.
so mad.
Her
Oh
name's
my
Ramel.
god. And then the other part
I
that
don't
I was
know.
like,
Like, I'm glad that Keith came back and all, and
oh
that
yeah,
Lotor,
yeah.
like, said that Lotor's evil because I trusted him. He's an anti-villain, whatever, whatever. And that Romel's here and, like, kind of...
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it's... This the thing. Like, he kind of pushed Lance to the side. Like, I get it, it was important, but, like...
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Like, you two apparently got pretty close at the end as friends, and like, Lance, I saw the animation, was
Yeah,
looking
you
for
think
a
he'd be
hug at
happy to
least
see him after 2 years.
of his team. And then he's kind of like, like, we got it, Lotor.
It's like, you guys are being stupid. I don't want to explain because I need to wait until the big bad guy gets back before I talk to you all.
Exactly, like, you haven't seen these guys in 2 years.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Like,
He doesn't even say like ready your weapons or something. He's literally just like Lotor's evil. Let's all wait for him. It's.
But Lance, like, I like how Lance is like, you can't go after Lotor and kill him, like lock him in the quintessence field now because Alora's there, and that's like,
yeah. That Lance is being more mature. Keith has been really smart and mature, and now he's just like randomly saying the worst possible thing. It's really
desperate.
distracting.
I kind of think he's
and
just
then-
desperate. Like, he's evil. You gotta
Yeah.
stop him now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
maybe
I don't
that's
get
it.
how they didn't see the
Plus,
flashes
I
of
guess
him being evil.
Lotor could have been like on the ship. He didn't know where Lotor was, so he might have been like, "I need to find him now. There's no time to explain." But then they clearly state that there is time to explain. But moving on. Lotor gets back, and they start explaining everything that he's been doing that's bad and all that. And
got eaten.
it's well done actually. I was like, this is a very this is a big twist. It's, Alteans are alive. No, like we had almost no reason to think that, but once you like actually think about it, it makes sense. It makes sense that Alteans would be like out on trading missions and stuff. Not all of them would have died. Not all Alteans were on Altea. That makes sense or whatever, but not many of us thought about that because it's like, it's been 10,000 years. It seems like they would have come back to their planet, or like they would have been more relevant since their entire species was destroyed. But after 10,000 years, it's like, it's like Zarkon probably would have gone and killed them all. So when we find out, Lotor saved them, it's like that is a logical thing to happen for us to not know about it and for us to be surprised. It's like, it didn't feel like the show was insulting my intelligence there. So I was pleasantly surprised with that twist.
The thing with the Alteans is, when I heard a bunch of people before the season came out, like, Alteans are still here. Like, I heard this Altean Lance theory, that Lance is part Altean, because the Altean broadsword and basically the wormhole from season 1, episode 1. And I'm like, but that doesn't make sense, because Alteans are kind of gone. But now, after season 6, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of more possible now, that I think about it.
Definitely.
That's
Um,
Altair would have arrived.
yep. And then, uh,
That's a,
I think that was kind of the end of it. Like, did Lotor get like kicked off or like he left basically, and that
Laura
was kind of
eating
it?
him is what happened,
Yeah.
and then they tied him up. But then then Clone Shiro showed his true colors because Hagar was
Right, right,
controlling
right,
it.
right. That was
And then
it. Yeah,
Shiro
yeah. He
took,
got. Yeah, I knew I
yeah,
was forgetting
Kuran took.
something. So and then again, yeah, still, yeah, yeah. And this is also where like Shiro is like controlled now, or Clone Shiro is now controlled. So again, very nice progression of Shiro's plot. We already talked about that. Moving on to episode 5. Um, I I uh I wrote down literally just Shiro and Lance 10 out of 10. And because like nothing else, like the creators knew, all the viewers knew nothing else in this episode mattered other than Shiro versus Lance. And it's amazing. The fight is amazingly directed, it's amazingly animated, choreographed, all of that stuff. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it. I loved the
Did you mean Keith versus Shiro?
hmm
Lance versus Shiro. I don't think
Did
that
I say
happened
Lance
yet.
versus Shiro?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I said Keith versus. Okay, whatever. Keith versus Shiro. Um. And then it was like, how did it? Yeah, yeah. I wrote down, how did we not find out they were brothers? And like it kind of it feels like Shiro or Keith would have said like, yeah, like it feels like it would have been mentioned, but what
They
makes
aren't
this like.
actually brothers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They're
like they are biological brothers, and especially because they had such a
they're
heavy relationship beforehand.
not biological brothers.
They aren't. I thought they were.
No, because earlier before Keith discovered he was Gulra, remember
yeah.
like the Gulra trials, the vision. He's like, Shiro, you're like a brother to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're actually kind of like adoptive brothers.
I
Like
thought,
Shiro took Keith
but
under his wing. That's the whole thing.
but
Like now Keith's kind of like, yeah, you're my brother.
Keith's dad, but Keith's dad is literally just Shiro with stubble.
I know.
Like
There's
that.
a theory that they're half brothers, but I don't
Guess?
know.
I don't know. I was like 100% convinced that they were biological. Okay. Well, I
No,
mean, either
but it
way.
doesn't matter. They're still brothers.
Yeah. That's the other thing is that like it kind of doesn't matter because their relationship doesn't feel any different. You know, like it's like when I found out they were brothers, it was like, oh, that's sweet, but it's like we already. It doesn't change their relationship, like their relationship of like sharing the black line and all that. It makes more sense now, but it didn't. It wasn't like distracting from the Shiro being a clone idea, which I thought it was. I thought it was well done. And then
That Clone Shiro made when Keith said, "You're my brother. I love you." Like
Yeah.
I almost thought he was gonna snap out of it, but no.
Yeah. So that's that. I mean, I mean, like I said, that's all that really happened in episode 5. That was the only relevant thing. There was more. I mean, obviously there was more like Lotor ship development and stuff, but that was like, for some reason, nobody notices that stuff when they watch episode 5.
It was the
No one
brother
knows
battle
why.
of
As
this.
soon as they, as soon as you get to the Keith Shiro fight, everything else becomes irrelevant.
Brother
Alright,
battle.
episode 6. Personally, I loved hearing that Shiro died. I hated that he died, but I like.
I was in tears. Like, don't say that you loved it. I thought he was still out there, and then we can both get Clone Shiro and real Shiro in the same room, and then like one would be Space Uncle, one would be Space Dad. But no, he died, and I was in tears. I'm like, no, he's never coming back.
Okay, and like yeah, I was like, it's like obviously you don't want him to be dead, but it was like that's like the last thing that you expected them to do. It came as such a huge surprise, and it was the most like emotionally gripping thing they could have done, and they did it. And I was like, yes, this is an amazing thing to do story wise. It's horrible, but that's what makes it amazing. And so I would like rewatching it. I was just like, ooh, like when he said like the voice acting was fantastic when he says Keith, I died, and it's all echoey, and it was just like, oh, that sent chills up my spine. that
It
was
makes sense too. It
impeccable.
does make so much sense that he died, and I don't know
Yeah.
why I was thinking that
Mm-hmm.
he was still out there and captured. But
Yep.
like
Yep.
I had the hope, but no, he was dead. And at my first time watching it, I was crying because I'm like, Voltron's never gonna be whole again.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing, but then like, okay, I'll get to it in episode. I'll get to it when we talk about episode 7. Um, but then episode 6. This is the episode when they have the final, where they start the final fight, or like at the end of this episode they start the final fight with Lotor. But then before that, the castle is broken again, and I have gotten so tired and so annoyed of this. It's basically like it's just a plot convenience to create tension. Like the first time, it's like, yeah, it made sense. Like the very first time they did it, I mean, it's like, yeah, it makes sense because like the castle hasn't been used in 10,000 years or whatever. They still need to figure out a bunch of stuff. It's like that makes sense. But then like as they keep going on, it's like, don't you think they would have figured out how the castle worked and like they'd be able to prevent stuff? And again, Shiro kind of like, or clone Shiro like had infiltrated it and all that stuff. And it's like, even though it makes sense, it's still like such a tired idea that I was just like, okay, let's just like, wait for all these characters. Like, just these characters are now out of commission. I'm not going to see them for the next half of an episode. Then they're going to come back and save the day. And it's like, it felt really played out to just have the castle is broken. The heroes can't do anything until they get it back online. And I thought it was kind of lazy.
Well, the thing is, the castle is 10,000 years old, so it does make sense. It breaks
Yeah.
down because it's old.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
it
has
makes
been used
sense,
a lot. So
but it makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but
yeah,
it feels
I know,
like
I know,
it's
I know.
used as a
It
plot
does
device
make
now.
sense, but like it does make sense, but like it's overused, and it's the timing that when it happens is like,
Yeah, it
really?
feels like it's the lazy way of creating tension now. So I hope that they stop doing that. I hope that when they remake the castle, they
Create
remake.
attention with, so
Yeah. It's like I hope, yeah, like when, like now that the castle's gone,
not
I
even
hope they
now.
remake it. It's all better now, and nothing is gonna stop it except for like maybe 1 or 2 times in the next 2 seasons. But I do not want to see any more. The castle is broken. We need to fix it before we can fight. Then once we do fight, we win. Like it feels like Avatar: The Last Airbender final fight where it's just like totally being destroyed. We can't take another hit like that or whatever. And then it's like activate Avatar state equals get the castle back online. And then it's just a one-sided fight or whatever. And I don't know. So
we also gotta remember the show is the target audience is like 7-year-olds, so it's not
So
gonna make
what?
sense to us, but to them it's like the most like tension-filled thing in the world.
Well, I mean, yeah, but the show obviously shows this show obviously shows ambition to be more than that. A character dies. You don't see multiple characters die, and even
Shiro and
Zark,
Lance, like those are 2 of the paladins.
it's like there's a lot of mature themes. It's like I feel like I don't know. And then let's see. I wrote down Allura, calm down, which because when they are kind of like at the standoff with Lotor and all of his goons, and then there's the. Is there 5? Oh, there's only 4 of them because, yeah, Keith is in the black line rushing towards him. Everybody's just, like, totally calm, just, like, what's he going to do? Like, who's going to make the first move? And Allura, for, like, 2.5 minutes straight, is just, like, yelling at Lotor. And, like, I get it, she's mad, but, like, she fires a laser off at him. And then Lotor's like, wait, don't attack them. She's like, I want to try and calm her down. But Allura is just, like, she is just, like, at 15. She is just, like... She was at like 1 or 2, and she just went to like a 15 in the span of like 30 seconds, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was crazy, and again, it
calm
kind
her
of makes
down
sense.
And kind of get her back on his side is the fact that their feelings
Yeah.
are real. They did fall in love for real, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what's like got me in the heart. It's like he does love her, but he's
And
also
it's-
an
yeah,
evil
yeah.
little asshole. So what do I do?
Exactly. And it's like, yeah, it totally, and it's like, looking at it objectively, it's like, it totally makes sense that Allura would be like really, really mad and because she's a pretty formal person, she's like normally very calm, so it's like seeing her being this mad, it's like it's really dramatic, and it's really like it feels emotional, but like at the same time it's just like when you go from like calm to screaming all the time, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't exactly feel like it's an emotional thing. It just feels like she lost her cool, which can be really like effective, like in Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, the main character, Miss Kobayashi, she's normally like really calm and analytical, but when you get to the climax of the series, she so kind of randomly like bursts out in an emotional speech, but it carries a lot of weight because she's not like just spouting randomly. She's just like she states like what she wants to happen. Basically, I mean, I don't think have you seen this show? No, okay. Well, I don't know. It's a good example, and like I can't pinpoint exactly what it was in this part, but like it almost felt funny to me the way Allura was just screaming, and Lotor was just like, hey, calm down. She was just like, no, and then she just kept screaming, and I don't know. But it was still.
You did find out that the person that she fell in love with kind of enslaved her entire race.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like it makes sense.
And kept them alive, and kept
but
the secret from
moment
her.
to
So
moment
it kind of
thing,
makes sense, but at the same time, like,
yeah,
you're
you're an asshole.
So
and then
Prince L'Oreal's an asshole.
Yeah, and then I wrote down Deus Shiro Machina because Shiro just decides to help. Like Lance summons the power of Shiro being dead, and then he boosts Blackline forward, and it's like, okay, sure, that's it. I kind of expected something like that to happen, and it did, and it's like that was fine. But then that transitions right into episode 7, where
This is the final battle.
Yeah, where we get a really, really good CG fight. This is the best CG fight I have ever seen, mostly because they really put a lot of effort into animating Lotor's Megazord thing. Especially because of like the tail, it felt like it was a real tail kind of thing. Like it was kind of flapping around instead of like staying stationary, which would have looked super weird. But like you can tell that and like I mean like with Voltron, if you look at Voltron, it makes sense that Voltron would be a little more static moving because it's 5 like separate parts. It's kind of like it's basically just
like
a robot.
Lion.
Yeah. So, Voltron's movements make sense even if they aren't the most visually appealing. But Lotor's robot movements also made sense because it was supposed to be a more agile, faster robot, basically, and it was a lot more pleasing to watch. So and still they put a lot of effort into it, and it shows. I really, really liked this fight. Yeah. What did you have something to say? Sorry.
Like I said, I did too, and then you kind of stopped what you were doing. I'm like, should I say?
Sorry.
Like, what else can I say about the fight that you haven't already said yet?
Mm-hmm.
Good? I don't know.
Good. Yeah.
Lotor's dead now. Like,
he did.
He's dead.
Then, one thing that I found
about Lotor dying in the quintessence field and being left there to die is like Allura, even though she was mad at him, she wanted to
that was
him.
The other thing that I was really confused because like she's like Allura goes through like so many emotions so quickly. Like at the start she's just like she is just furious at him at the start, and then she kind of goes back down to like level-headed or whatever of like determination, and then they go into quintessence field and it makes sense. She's like, we have to kill him, but everybody else is like that, so it's like, okay, obviously it's kind of corrupting them, but then they're like, stop, calm down, and then they like overpower him or whatever, and she's like, okay, we have to save him now, and it's like, he killed so many of your race, and like he betrayed you, and it's like, did you just like get over all of that, and it's like, you're trying to be a good person or something?
Like, she still loves him is the thing, because those feelings are real, but she didn't want to leave him, you know, to die because she did love him. And but everyone's like, we got to get out of here. He's a lost cause. He's going to be another Zarkon.
Yeah,
and
he
then
is
they
a
left
lost
him.
cause. It's like, you'd think she'd realize, like, if they pulled him out of there, it's not like he's just gonna be like, oh, sorry about all that, and then they just, like, happily ever after. It's like, no, there's still a bunch of, like, Galra factions and stuff that he's definitely not suited to control now that they have seen. It's like, they kind of like, if they were to bring him back, they'd basically have to imprison him. Like, they can, like, there is no way that if they brought him back that they'd be able to trust him again. So
just be another Zarkon. Like,
exactly. So I was like, you know, you'd think that Allura would have kind of realized that, but either way, still great fight. And then afterwards, we get the moment that I said that I was waiting until episode 7, where they have to get rid of the ship to close the vortex, or like the wormholes or whatever. And it's like, all right, sure, you know, now we have an excuse to hope for no more the ship is broken, we need to fix it plot hole, or not plot holes, plot conveniences. But the big part, I wrote down, I also wrote down nice Lance development, because he kind of takes responsibility. He feels responsible for not trying to help Shiro.
He's like, I could have stopped. Like, he's in tears. He's like, I could have stopped this. He warned me, but I didn't listen. And it really made me sad. It's like, no, you did all you could.
Yeah, and the other thing was that, again, like, I've been praising the voice actors for their performances, which they are really good at. At the beginning of him, when he's like, I'm sorry, Shiro, he kind of, like, I feel like when he starts saying that, it's like, oh no, this is going to be a really overdramatic, like, bawling and tears, screaming, like, I should have helped you moment or whatever. But then he just, like, hunches over and he says, like, really realistically how you would expect somebody to say, I could have helped, I'm sorry, or whatever. It's like, that was awesome. But then, okay, so Allura just, like, takes the Black Lion's essence or whatever and, like, puts it into Shiro, and then his hair turns white? Why? Like, why? What? Like, why? But then, like, he comes back to life. Like, there are I have so many issues with this. It's insane.
I have a problem with it. Like, why did his hair turn white? The tuft of his hair that turned white was due to stress for being the champion and, like, in that Galra ring. Now, why is his whole hair's white now? That's like, you're counteracting what's happening. Is he old now? Like, what is this?
And then plus it's like, it's the Black Lion. Why not make his hair black? Like, that's just the obvious thing to do. But so, okay. So, like, that's minor compared to the fact that they will not commit to having a dead character. I was so wow. I was so impressed with the...
Only the Blade of Marmora members can die, not Voltron.
And that, like, having Shiro die, like, that reveal 2 episodes earlier, I was like, wow, they did it. That was such a smart move by them. And then they backstep on it, and they take a step back, and I was like, ugh. And it's like, who's to say that if Allura can just do that and bring Shiro back to life, why can't she do that? Like, there's, like, they better have a damn good reason for why she was able to do that and why she won't be able to do that in the future. Because
actually, there's a proper explanation for that. Because Shiro's essence was in the Black Lion. The Black Lion preserved Shiro's
fair enough.
essence.
But then what if? Fair enough. But then, like, what if Lance dies? Why can't his essence... Like, there's no special way that Shiro died. It's not like, oh, you have to be blown up with quintessence or whatever for your essence to go into the Black Lion. It's like, you know, he was connected to the Black Lion, so the Black Lion, assumingly, kind of, like, took his essence, or, like, he went in there after he died. It's like, there's no reason why, if Lance dies, you know, there's no reason why he should, like, why his essence shouldn't go into the, I guess, Red Lion now or whatever. There's no reason for that not to happen. And then there's no reason that Allura wouldn't be able to just do the same thing that she did to Shiro and bring him back to life. So they really,
similar thing when Lance died because of the electrocution, like, by bringing him back, and comparing it to how she brought Shiro back, it's like, wait, why are these so different? Like, when Lance died, the red his essence should be in the red lion.
Yeah.
But it didn't make sense for me either. It's like why? Why is it
Yeah,
two
it's like
different things?
yeah, it was just like kind of
Like why did
confusing
Shiro's
overall.
body evaporate? Like where did his
Yeah,
body go?
that's
If
yeah,
he
why?
died? Like did it evaporate?
And then the other thing is she puts his essence back into clone Shiro, and it's like there is like I refuse to believe that Hagar like made this clone Shiro and she put like the remote chip she like made it so that she could control him remotely and put that only in his arm. There is no way she is that stupid. Because like I get it, it's a mechanical arm. That's like kind of easy, but you literally artificially created a life form. Like he can bleed. He is like basically a human with Shiro's memories. There is no way that she wouldn't be able to like put that electronic or like magical controlled chip like in his neck or something, or like somewhere else in that clone's body. So there is zero reason that she like there is almost no reason that she wouldn't be able to remotely control him still, assuming like because like did she get like captured by the other Galra or something? I feel like I remember that happening.
I forget what
I don't know.
happened.
Like didn't the other Galra like corner her at some point or whatever? I don't know.
Oh yeah, she was shot by Lotor's ghouls.
That
and she
that
escaped.
was it. Yeah, but like but like she's still alive. So like and she was controlling him remotely. There is no reason why she shouldn't still be able to do that. So if they just give Shiro a new arm or something, and they're just like, okay, c'est la vie, let's, not worry about the fact that you're in a clone's body that was controlled by, it's like, and it's like, yeah, it was a clone's essence, I guess, but it's still the clone's body. So they have a lot of reason to be scared that he'd be controlled by Hagar again. And if they aren't like really, really like aware of that in the next season, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Another thing about Shiro's arm, if you remember from like the first season, his arm was like the top part of his arm was fine, but then the other part was mechanical. But then like after
now it's like
when the
past his
was
shoulder.
fighting Heath, like it extended to like his entire arm.
Yeah.
And so like
I always thought it only went up to like his elbow or whatever, but then it was like, okay, I guess it's like a little higher than I thought, but like no, it's his entire shoulder. Like
that happened only during the Keith and Clone Shiro fight, and here's my theory on that. She was like slowly but surely he's becoming a row beast.
Yeah, that makes sense. Remote magic.
I saw people theorizing about it too.
You can use remote magic as a plot device for anything.
Because it's Hagar. Hagar can turn anything to a row beast, and that's what she was doing before. So basically she was making Clone Shiro a row beast, but Keith chopped off the arm, so he's probably good.
Well, he chopped off most of it, but there is still mechanical part. Like, yeah, and it's like that's gotta have like some sort of effect on him. And again, this is like, if the next season comes out and everybody's just like, oh, okay, yeah, we made this new arm for you, or whatever, and let's not, remove the rest of your mechanical arm, or let's not like inspect you to make sure that you don't have any like Galra magic in your blood or whatever, and they just like kind of are okay with him having been controlled by Hagar, then it's gonna make not much sense. And then this kind of leads into my final point, which is kind of like, what more interesting stuff can they do now? Because they have to focus on the team. A really interesting and obvious thing is taking more focus on the Blade of Marmora stuff with Keith. I'm really interested in that. And there are a bunch of like side characters that they can kind of go back to, so there is a lot of options, but I'm curious as to what they're going to do with those options. Like, how are they gonna kind of expand upon that? Who's gonna be the big villain now?
Sendex. Sendek's probably gonna take over the Galra Empire now.
That does make a lot of sense. I feel like there could be some sort of conspiracy as to how Lotor died, because if everyone hears that Voltron killed Lotor, it's gonna they're gonna hate Voltron again because they thought that Lotor was a lot of them thought that
They're not really
Lotor
gonna
was their new
believe them
leader.
either. They're just gonna be like, "How can we trust you? You're
Yeah,
Voltron."
exactly. It's exactly. So I hope that they kind of go into more of the political and social aspects of how people will react when they're in the middle of a war, kind of thing. There aren't a lot of kids shows that really go into that, which, in my opinion, is a really interesting topic. That's yeah, okay. That's all. That's all the notes I have. Did you have any last things to say?
Um, Last things to say, just some things I want to see in the next
Yeah.
season. Some things I need Keith and Lance to actually start talking, not
Yeah,
for any
definitely.
shipping reasons, just because definitely not, but just for some, because they do have that friendship that they
Yeah.
have been developing. Like their characters have been developing together, especially when Shiro disappeared and now Shiro's back. I want them to like talk.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to like interact and just be like because both of them, like Keith tried to kill himself, Lance actually died, and
Yep.
the creators said that both of them are their own stabilities. Like Keith is Lance's stability, Lance is Keith's stability, because like they're a team, and so I need them to talk. Like I
Yeah,
need them
like
to show.
I want to see more of when Keith when Lance passes out in a coma, like he emerges from a coma and then he shoots Sendak or Voltron, I don't know. He shot one of the bad guy who was like invading the ship, and then Keith catches him, and then later on, he's like, "Don't you remember when I emerged from a coma?" Or wait, no, did Keith emerge from a coma?
Okay, so what happened was Keith like I punched Sendak, and Lance is like, yeah, right after I emerged from a coma and shot his arm off, and Keith's so like, we had a bonding moment. I cradled you in my arms, and Lance is like, no, don't remember, didn't happen.
Yeah, I
But
want
clearly
more
in season
chemistry
6,
like
the
that.
first
That was
episode,
hilarious.
Lance is all like in the first episode of season 6, all Lance is like telling Laura, like, I think we're a really good team. Like here we are working together, and he's hugging himself and cradling himself, and it's like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked. I thought that was hilarious. It was great chemistry between the characters. It was really it was relationship building. It was awesome. I want to see more of stuff like that. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. I mean, you've pretty much explained all of my hopes for season 7.
Another hope I do have for season 7, because it's a road trip back to Earth. I want them to go back to the Bulmera. Like, please.
Oh yeah.
God, please. I need to see Shay again.
Yeah, definitely.
Please, like,
all right.
Interacted since like season 2.
Yeah, totally.
It's season 7.
It's season 7.
That she's coming back.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that concludes this podcast. So if you haven't seen this show, then you better not have just watched all of this podcast because we just spoiled season 6 for you. If you have seen this show, then let us know what you think of it in the comments below. I really like it. I'd probably say 7.5, 8 out of 10. What would you say?
I say personally like 9 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, all right. So all right. We'll even it out. We'll say 8.5 out of 10. That's the Kitty Cross. That's our shared rating of it. All right.
Did you almost just make up a ship name? I swear to God.
I don't know why it popped into my head of just a sign by the highway that says Kitty
Cross.
Crossing.
There we go. Kitty
all right,
Cross.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I hope
I fucking hate myself.
Phone, stop beeping. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. You should totally check out Kitty Craft's channel. Link will be in the description below, and it will be one of those little circle thingies that appear in the last 20 seconds of the video. So, I'll see you all in the next video. Do you have any final words to say?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.